The politics of language threatens to rear its ugly head once again. Thanks for joining us. I'm Harsha Subramaniam. The new draft education policy has proposed a three-language policy that has triggered strong reactions, especially from non-Hindi speaking states, who allege that this is imposition of Hindi. DMK leader M.K. Stalin came down heavily on the proposal. He tweeted in Tamil saying imposing Hindi on Tamil Nadu would be similar to throwing stones at a beehive. Raj Thackeray's party, the MNS, tweeted that Hindi is not our mother tongue. Do not enforce it on us and incite us. This policy document was recommended by a 9-member committee headed by Dr. Kasturi Rangan. Dr. Kasturi Rangan joins us right now. Dr. Kasturi Rangan, thank you so much indeed for joining us today on Bloomberg Quint. What is the thinking between the three-language policy? Again, what is the rationale behind including a third language?
You know, the most important thing I want to say is language is more than professional requirement. It builds the capability of a youngster in several aspects of culture, social, environmental, and many other things. It develops a method of thinking which each language adds to the capability. And therefore, and then the second point is between the age 2 and between the age 8, there is 2 to 8 years, there is the development of the brain which is very amenable to learning multiple languages. This is besides mother tongue, local tongue, home language, and etc. And this is the opportunity to make sure that the children learn as many languages as possible because that capability exists in that particular age. So far as the three-language formula is concerned, this has been something which has come from the earlier policy. You know that, 1986, 1992. All that we do is we reviewed the thing. The general acceptance in the country of a three-language formula is unquestioned today, even though in details which may vary. So what we have done is to make sure that even as we adopt the three-language formula, on which enough rationale has been written by various policymakers, the important thing is we have introduced a level of flexibility, taking into account the multilingualism as well as the fact that you have several options in this country to learn languages because of the richness of the language in India.
Sir, so if I may just interrupt you just there. I take your point, and on the areas flexibility is where I suppose some confusion has crept in. If you can explain this to us, and on the topic of flexibility, the draft policy says students who wish to change one of the three languages they are studying may do so in grade 6, so long as the study of the three languages by students in the Hindi-speaking states would continue to include Hindi, English, and one of the modern Indian languages from other parts of India. You made this distinction of Hindi-speaking states and non-Hindi-speaking states.
I see your point. I can only tell you that there was a little problem of really understanding the import of what we have tried to do in that policy formulation. We have gone through it. I too find that it is a little out of step with the overall spirit of the language policy that we have adopted for this particular policy. So what we have done is yesterday we had another version of it, which was more in tune with the rest of the framework of the language policy in this particular policy, 2019 policy. So what we did is, we thought since that version doesn't create the kind of confusion or kind of wrong signal about the fact that the Hindi has to be imposed on non-Hindi speaking states and in particular southern states, we have uploaded that part of it. So that removes that kind of an ambiguity that I think the earlier formulation had, which we detected it the moment we saw the reaction.
So just for my understanding, let's say I live in Kanpur. What would be the three languages that I'll have to study mandatorily or by choice? For example, parents have to decide. That is not something on each in mind. I will first have a local language. I have a mother tongue. It could be Hindi. I don't know. Using your talk of Kanpur. It could be also the local language. There may be a version of Hindi there, or it could be also the home language, which could be a little more difficult, or maybe a little different. Either of them, they can choose one of them. And the second thing is, all the parents, whether you like it or not, even though we have also gone into great depth with regard to the English language, and also the fact that we should also have an Indian language along with English language, for example, in learning science. We think that will continue irrespective of what we say. So because language is a language it's a global language which is adopted globally for communication, even though I won't call it as an international language. But it is still used for majority of the global communications. Sir. So, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Third one will be, in fact, if I was a parent, I would as well go for a classical language. I would like to have a Pali, or I would like to have a classical science, or I have a Tamil, or I would like to have a classical Sanskrit, or those kind of a thing.
Okay, so just for my clarity, if I'm a Hindi speaker living in Kanpur, I choose my mother tongue, which is Hindi, I choose English, and I also choose any other language, any part of India. Am I getting that right?
Yes, you are right. What we have recommended in the policy is Hindi-speaking states, in the interest of the ability to have communication between different parts of the country,
yes,
shall also adopt a language which is not a part of the Hindi belt.
Okay.
So that language that is a choice. It's completely flexible choice.
So is that optional, or is that being made compulsory?
There is no compulsory.
Okay.
You can choose Sanskrit, classical language also.
Okay.
Any of those 8 scheduled languages.
Okay, got it.
You can choose. I want to tell you one thing. The policy does not impose any language on any state.
Point taken, sir. Point taken. Now,
that is the point.
Okay, coming to the question of the non-Hindi speaker. Now, if I'm a non-Hindi speaker, the policy says the study of languages by students in non-Hindi speaking states would include regional language, Hindi and English. This is where
now you please look at the reformulated version.
Okay, this you're saying is being removed. This
is the one that created the problem.
Okay. So
it has been removed.
Again, for purpose of clarity, if I'm a student, if I'm a non-Hindi speaker from the south of India, what are the 3 languages, and what are the options?
Certainly, the local language, which could be mother tongue, or the local language will be one.
Okay.
The second could be, still in South India, they do learn English. There is no question on that.
Okay.
They do that part of it. The third can be anything. Either it can be classical, or whether it could be a national language, or it could be a language which is belong to another state. So that it can be chosen. There's no problem on that.
Okay, so Hindi as an option for non-Hindi states is not being made compulsory, is it, or it's only part of the options?
It is not compulsory. But you can choose a Hindi if you want to. Your parent, a South Indian parent, thinks that he should my son. In fact, you know, Dakshina Bharat, Hindi Prajar Sabha has done far better than many other so-called Hindi places.
Okay.
So there is no compulsion, and when there is no compulsion, I think people learn without any of these kind of things.
Okay.
So I am sure that the question of dropping Hindi or bringing it Hindi and making it a national issue is not necessary at all.
Okay.
The choice will be with the state, with the parent himself. So there is so much of flexibility in the system.
Okay. So point well taken, sir. What happens next? This is a draft policy. What happens next? You have submitted this to the government. Can you explain to the process of this?
We submitted to the government. The government has put it into the website for the public domain. They are now trying to get the feedback from the public about the various aspects of the policy. And at the end of it, I think they will consolidate and then review the whole inputs, and then make such of the revisions which may be necessary, because that is in the public interest. So that will be done. And once that is there, the question is whether you formulate a paper for the cabinet to adopt it and then put it into motion.
Dr. Kasturirangan, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us with all those clarifications.
Thank you.